My name is Simba Roberts, 58 years old. I'm a born, hard, and true American. And of that, I'm proud, and I'll always be proud. One of my main concerns right now is how the United States government, at this point, have shown so little concern for the soldiers and sailors and Marines that have went off to fight this war. Whatever you think about the war, that's not important. But one thing that we must always think about are the people who are willing to go out and fight the war instead of us. It is so important that we take care of the people who go out and fight the war. It's bad enough that they are not getting paid enough, their families are not getting paid enough, they do not have proper housing, some of them are even on welfare in this country. The families of fighting soldiers. All of us together must stand together and remember what we've learned in the early 90s. Blame the war, not the soldier. Let's make sure our soldiers are properly taken care of. George Washington stated back in 1789, I think it was, he stated that the propensity for young Americans to continue to fight in the Army will be dependent all the way on how they perceive the past veterans were treated. It's so important that we treat our veterans proper. The next thing that I'm really concerned about, and I should put another hat on, but it's our educational system. I cannot ever remember when Darwin and Christianity had anything opposite of each other. Even now, as an adult, neither one of those have any problems in my life. I don't know why grown-ups are making a problem in the kids' life today. Whatever Darwin said, okay, that's science. Whatever anyone else said, then that's what they said. It's up to each and every one of us to believe. If we want to believe in just the materialistic aspect of the world, that's our choice. If we want to believe in the spiritual concept, in addition to how it affects the material aspect, that too is our choice. So let us not make fights and dissension in areas that we shouldn't be, because remember, we are at war. And if nothing else, America must be together during war. So let's get together, parents in particular, and let's demand that our children are taught a relevant education, an education that shows them how to function in the true world in which they live in, and not just something that some intellectual come up with off their heads. Homemaking, shop, metal shop, wood shop, mechanics, all these things are great. In the 50s, we had those things down in apartheid-ridden East Texas. East Texas was the most apartheid area you can go into. Talking about Alabama now, East Texas. Yet and still, the schools had all of these things for the kids to grow up and become something. Majority of the kids not going to go to college, particularly since college has become such a big business and is attracting all the foreign interest of foreign students, if you may. And everything that I say, go and check it out at your local universities, and you'll see what I'm saying, in colleges, and you'll see how our kids have been systematically taken out. They kind of remember how it was in Saudi Arabia in the old days, how Saudi Arabia only let certain people get educated. It was like in America once, wasn't it? Ha! Man, we got to be careful that we don't let this thing spin back around on us. Okay, veteran school, old peoples. Don't you know everybody become old peoples? Why can't we see it through ourselves to care and start taking better care of our citizens, senior citizens? Why do their care have to be precipitated on how much money they have? Why can't we treat our old people good? I have been pretty much all over this area, all over the world, except Africa, Greenland, and I think there might be a few other little places out there I ain't been to. But for the most part, everywhere I've been, Europe, Asia, the older folk are held in such high regard. But again, you got to remember what we're living in. Be very careful, because when you start submitting to a capitalist everything, a capitalist government is bad, because a capitalist government is a dictatorship, so we don't want to talk about that, even though it might exist. But we have to make sure that the government realize that it's a facilitator and not a dictator. They are there to facilitate the wishes and wants. We shouldn't have to be scuffling and rustling and worrying about how the health care is going on with our peoples, our older folks, people like me in a few years. So let's pay a little more attention to our older senior citizens. A country that believes that if you cannot participate in the means of production, that you are nobody, is a country that is on its way out, just like the Roman Empire got taken out by a bunch of barbarians. And I hate to say it like that, because I know a lot of folk don't want to wrap their minds around the greatest country in the world, but even great can be improved on. If we've achieved the level of great, then let's continue with our attitude of excellence that have always been the foundational block of our country has been that. It hasn't been all the ugly, and for all the ugly that our Americans have done, the dominant American culture have done to all types of people all across this country, every which way through every phase of development of this country, we ought to just be thankful that the Lord have not just knocked us down right now. Because I was asked that question once. I was over in an area in northern Vietnam, and at a situation I went to, and they asked me, why didn't all the African slaves rise up and kill their masters since they were stronger, and even after you got free? And I had never even thought about nothing like that. I said, boy, good grief, man, I ain't never thought about nothing like that. I said, I know one thing, we couldn't have got back home. That's one thing. And the other thing is just, that just ain't in us. I think that certain groups of people, particularly in the former slave colonies, folks learned about forgiveness. They learned about really Christian. If anybody want to fall in need of, you ain't down for Christ now, you got to be down for Christ. Because if everybody who's listening to me right now, that means you got the means to see, you got electricity, you got a TV or a computer or something you can look at. If somebody get mad and think too much about happened in the 1800s and the 1700s, then nobody will have that. Let's all just pray, and let's all try to be better people with each other, because I'm telling you, it could be a whole lot different. And I know, again, it's hard for folks to wrap their minds around it, but I have lived in worlds where people said, let's get it on. And I am so happy they didn't. I'm so happy they didn't. Okay, what else good is there to talk about? I know that the 8 years that I've been on the air in Frazier Park has been one of the greatest experiences I've ever had as a talk show host and cable radio. Everybody was asking me, put your pretty pearly whites on. I couldn't do that because, again, I went on for information. I don't want people to get involved in my personality and how my eyebrow look. My mustache is untrimmed, or he didn't shave that morning, or his eyes all bloodshot from the night before because the cognac was flowing. That's right, the cognac was flowing. But the bottom line is, folks, that has been one of the most challenging things. I really wish I had all the tapes. I got quite a few tapes from my shows, but from the tapes, from the guys, things that I remember most of all about my show was one guy called one Saturday on the Panic. I had a highway patrolman in that day. I bring various law enforcement in to kind of keep people aware of what's going on, if they're going to be having special traffic stops and sobriety checks or seatbelt checks. And they listen to my show and they can get the ups on them. Hey man, the guy going to be right there by his hardware, and they'll learn all that stuff. But anyway, one of the funniest things that this guy called, I had this officer sitting right there, Officer, I forgot his name, John Aguirres, I think his name was. Anyway, John was sitting there, and the guy called in and said, hey, "Oh, you Simba?" I said, "That's right." He said, "Hey, I'm a weekender, but I ain't been here in a month. But I came home and two big old birds, two big old bald-headed birds walking all over my house. They tore up all my house. I killed one." I say, "Sir, are you where are you located?" "I'm in Pine Mountain Club, and there's a big old one. He's walking outside. He's looking at me now. He's looking mean. They tore up my house. They did doo-doo all over my place." And it was so funny. I mean, this guy must have ranted and raved, and he was describing the condors. He was describing a condo in his house. And so I said, "Well, just a second. I have a law enforcement officer here." And John waves me off. He said, "No, no, not me. Not me. I don't want to hear." I mean, it's been so many stuff. One night when I used to do it, I used to do it 2 nights a week. Well, 1 night a week, Wednesday nights from 7 to 9. And one night somebody got stopped on the freeway, and I guess some of these was prank calls, I found out later. And this guy called, said he was from Louisiana, got stopped on the thing, and the only thing they knew how to do was cut. They knew how to cut, hunt, and skin coons, rabbits, and squirrels. And if we had any coons, rabbits, and squirrels up here, then that was a big thing. Now, at that time, like the feral cats took over a lot of the areas now, but that used to be big old large raccoon packs, big like little baby bears walking down the street like men, like, "Yeah, this is my block, man." I mean, raccoons. And when you see them, you even just stop your car and let them go by because they too big to hit. So, anyway, we had nothing but raccoons and stuff, and these guys were saying, "Well, we would do any kind of work. We'll do yard work. We'll kill all the squirrels. We'll kill all that." It was funny. But these are the type of things that when I think back on it, I really think, of good times. The times that a guy called me a clown. He said I was a clown. I thanked him and I wished him well. And now me and that guy is one of the best friends. He's one of my most frequent call-ins. And it's just funny stuff. Another guy called in and told me that I shouldn't say that the president told a lie. And I said, "Wait a minute now. I'm sorry. I'm a grown-up. I really fought in Nam. I mean, I was one of them true believers. I believed everything they told me that I was doing right. I was fighting for people to do everything that my mom and daddy couldn't do. Because my mom and daddy couldn't vote when I went in the war. And when I came back, neither they wasn't allowed to vote. Not openly. But anyway, this is fun. This is so much fun. It's not often I get an opportunity to speak openly and honestly and have someone to listen and know it, and know they listen. I know I'm being listened to now. But I really enjoyed serving my community. That's one of the most important things. I really, really enjoy serving my community. For all of my life, since I've been back from Nam, I've had the same reputation in many communities all around here, not just here, but all over California, like I have here. Topanga Canyon, that was a hard nut to crack. They didn't want to give up on Memorial Day. For you folks don't know, Memorial Day, Topanga Canyon has what's called Topanga Days. It's not Memorial Days. What we did was, when I was living up there in Topanga Canyon, I was passing through, some kids said, "We ought to have a float. Simba, why don't you lead the float? We can use your truck." And I had an old beat up Blazer, so they put all kind of little paper and stuff on it and put a little pinata on top, looked like a bull, and we went down the road in Topanga Canyon. And I'm telling you, to this day, this was back in 1990, to this day, every Topanga Days have a veteran entry. If it ain't no more than 5 or 6 guys with American flag, the people cheering them on. And I wrote an article on it. It was about when the hawks and the doves can sit down, there will always be peace. When they can sit down together, there'll always be peace and quiet. As long as they flying and going all over the place, there's confusion. But when they sit down together, like we all did that Memorial Day, that particular